Hello everybody, Mr. E here, and welcome back to my series, Mr. E Talks Movies. This is the second installment of this series. After the first episode, that was the most viewed video I've had all year, so I've decided that I'm going to be making these videos on a regular basis. And I'd like to thank you all for your support right now. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any content. And so without further ado, let's get on with it. I've decided to keep a little bit of a journal. I plan on using it to write little notes for the movie. Maybe I'll rewatch the movie before I make this video. So I've decided to take notes as I rewatch it and keep track of, and use this to help me keep track of details throughout the movie, like names of characters, little important details I keep leaving out, and all that stuff. So yeah. Today's topic of discussion: the 1984 classic fantasy movie, The Neverending Story. I first saw this movie when it was on Netflix back in August, and it was one of the first movies I saw the first few weeks of moving in here. So yeah, this is going to be really fascinating. And so the movie starts off with basic opening credits stuff. Introduces the cast and all the guys that worked on the movie. That's a no-brainer. The reason I'm talking about this is, I don't know, something about the music. I really liked the song they played during that. It's very 80s, you know. I kind of heard a little bit of Zelda in there, which is kind of weird considering this movie came out like 2 years before The Legend of Zelda. So anyway, we see the movie's main character, a kid named Bastien. No, not you, Bastien. Get out of here. Anyway, the kid basically has an active imagination. He's kind of like a really big bookworm. And one morning, he's sitting at the table eating breakfast with his dad. And he basically talks to him about how he keeps spacing out in class, drawing unicorns, and how he doesn't turn in his math stuff in time. And so he basically tells him to just grow up, keep your head out of the clouds, and keep your feet on the ground and that thing. And so yeah, Bastien goes off to school, where he's encountered by a group of bullies. They throw him in a dumpster. Then he crawls out of the dumpster, gets chased by them a little bit, and he finds sanctuary in an old bookstore with this old guy named I think it's a Coriander or whatever that is, something like that. Anyway, they meet, tells them about. They talk a little bit about books and stuff, and then Bastien's looking at what he's reading, and he's like, "Hey, what book is that? Can I look at it?" And then he's like, "No, this stuff is very intense. It's not meant for children. You know how like some books they have like a bit of a thing or whatever, where it's like deep down you know that this is all just a story and all that. Those books are safe. This one, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. So yeah, you're not ready for this." And so when he's not looking, Bastien takes the book from him and takes it with him to school. And so yeah, obviously since there's a math test in that class, and he doesn't want to meet the bullies again. You know what he does? He skips the class. He hides up in the school's attic, and basically he reads the book there. So yeah, this whole movie is basically just about a kid who skips school to read a book that he stole from an old guy. So yeah, then the rest of the movie basically just It's just of him reading the book as like the whatever. This is where things start to get juicy, so bear with me here. So yeah, he starts reading the book. It's about this magical world called Fantasia, a world filled with all kinds of mystical creatures and beings and all kinds of other crazy stuff. And so yeah, it's one night somewhere in the forest. You just hear something really big going through the forest. It's apparently there's this giant rock creature known simply as Rockbiter, because he's a rock biter. He eats rock. He just straight up eats rocks. He's driving in a giant boulder steamroller, and there he meets a camp with a couple other characters. There's a Night Hob for an elf guy or whatever, and his pet, a giant bat, and there's also, this is a weird name, Teeny Weeny, a guy in a suit, and his pet is like a giant snail. I liked those guys. I was kind of bummed they didn't get much screen time in this movie. And so yeah, they're like chilling, and then all of a sudden Rockbiter comes up, and he's like, hey guys, you guys mind if I sit here for a little bit? And then they're like, sure. And so he sits down, he picks up a few rocks, starts eating them. They talk for a little bit. Rockbiter says that there's that where he's from, there used to be a whole bunch of rocks that he would eat, but now it's kind of gone. It's not there anymore. Apparently there's this big whatever that's it's kind of like a void that's kind of like sucking, that's kind of like destroying all the life on Fantasia. I don't know, it's just not there anymore. There's nothing there. In fact, that's what they call the thing, the nothing. It's a void that's somehow destroying all of Fantasia. Apparently, Teeny Weeny and Night Hob are kind of had a similar thing. They kind of like went on their own after their homes got destroyed by the nothing, and so now they're going to see the Empress, see if she has something that can help. She knows something about this thing that can help, and so they all hurry off. Of course, Night Hob's on his bat that flies, and then Rockbiter is climbing on his steamroller, and he goes over to Teeny, and he's like, hey, do you need me to pick you up? Is that snail gonna... Oh no, this is a racing snail. This snail's like super fast. And then he's like, wait, what? And then he rides on the snail, and it just like goes really fast. And then he's like, huh. So yeah, fast forward a couple minutes. They go to basically what is the capital of Fantasia. They call it the Ivory Tower. It's a pretty cool visual there. It's got a nice looking tower. And yeah, up on the top of the tower, that's the terrace, where you got all these other weird creatures and faces and whatnot. They're not important. They're gonna die soon anyways. So yeah, basically the Empress's servant or whatever is basically announces to these guys that, well, the Empress is sick, and somehow because of that, the apocalypse is happening, all because of the nothing. So yeah, everyone's freaking out. And so he says that there is one guy who can save Fantasia from its destruction. It's a guy named Atreyu, a great warrior, and as it turns out, he's just a kid. He's just a kid, and yeah, it was kind of weird. He came up at one point, and then the servant's like, "Hey, this isn't a place for children. Get out of here." And then he's like, "Well, then you should have sent for me. I didn't send for a child. I sent for Atreyu. That's me." And then everyone's like, Yeah, sure, whatever. Well, if you are, then you have to go on this great quest to find a cure for the Empress who is getting sick, and before the Nothing basically sucks in all of Fantasia. Oh yeah, there are a few things you have to go through for this quest. You have to go alone. Yeah, this is for you and you alone. You can't have any party members. This isn't Final Fantasy, you know. This isn't an RPG video game or whatever. And also no weapons. Yeah, this is gonna be very dangerous. And wait, if this is gonna be dangerous, why does he have to leave his weapons? And before he actually leaves, he's given this weird medallion that's like a symbol of this with a bunch of snakes or whatever. It's also on the cover of the book, apparently. Atreyu then goes on his historic journey throughout Fantasia in order to save the world from destruction. And of course, he hops on his horse named Artax. That's a cool name. Actually, Atreyu and the horse Artax go out for a little while, unaware for them that, I don't know, the Nothing somehow has a minion, a wolf monster by the name of Gamork, is tracking them down. And so, yeah. And there's this nice little moment where they're out by where Atreyu and the horse are out by a river, and they're I don't know, having a moment. They're eating, having a good time or whatever. And then Bastian, the kid, he's there and he's like, yeah, he like gets out his lunch that he brought for school and he's like, yeah, I should save this. And so yeah, the two travel for a little while. They couldn't really find anything worth noting. And so for help, they decided to turn to find something named Morla. Apparently, the wisest person, ancient person, or creature, or whatever, on Fantasia. So yes, obviously, so they go over to find this Morla for help. At least that's what I thought her name was, or how that's pronounced. And anyway, she's up on the Shell Mountain or whatever. We don't know why they call it Shell Mountain yet. So I guess we'll just wait. And apparently it's in this big swamp land. I don't know, it's called the Marshes of Sadness or whatever. And apparently they have to like not give in to not feel sad, or else they'll sink into the quicksand, which I don't know. That's kind of weird. It's like if you like think happy thoughts or whatever, you just think of a funny meme you've seen yesterday, and you'll be able to pass through with these. But if you get like real sad all of a sudden, or like the typical glumness of the swamp will make you sad, you'll just sink into the mud and die. And so yeah, they travel for a little while, they struggle, and the horse doesn't make it. Yeah, it was really sad. He's like trying to pull him out. He's like, Artax, no! And it's like, yeah, of course, Bastian is kind of crying a little bit too. I mean, if I was being honest, so was I a little when I saw that. It was really sad. But then later, Atreyu reaches the Shell Mountain where Morla's supposed to be. He's up on top of the hill, and well, there's nothing there. And then the mountain starts to move. Apparently, he falls off of the mountain, clings onto a tree, and as it turns out, Morla is a giant turtle, just chilling in the mud. And then, I don't know, Bastian freaks out from it and screams, and then Atreyu and the turtle, they're just looking back there like, what? And then he's like, wait, he hurt? They hurt me? And my initial thought when I heard about that, it wasn't, holy crap, they could hear him. It was like, I was like, bro, why are you screaming? It's only a book. Why are you screaming? And so, yeah, Trey's there, and he's like, are you Morla? Yeah. Do you know about the nothing that's kind of killing everything? And then Morla's like, I don't really give a. And so he's like, oh, come on. You're gonna die too eventually because of this thing. You should most certainly give a. And then he's like, no, I won't give a. Well, then you're not gonna help me? And so, yeah, apparently the turtle has a bit of an allergic reaction to people, and so he sneezes with like the force of a hurricane or whatever. Yeah, it kind of blows him away for a little bit. And so yeah, Morla then tells Atreyu to go to the Southern Oracle, which is apparently on the other side of Fantasia. They'll never. And he's like, oh, come on, man, I'll never get there in time. What? And he's like, and then Morla's just like, well, it sucks to be you, I guess. And then kind of blows him away. Tries to go through the swamp, and then he almost sinks. And then he's about to like give up, and Gaborg is about to catch up to him. And yeah, everything doesn't look very good. Enter Falkor, the Luck Dragon, the most popular character out of all these characters in this movie. Suddenly he swoops in, grabs Atreyu, and takes him to safety. And so Atreyu and Falkor, they wake up, and apparently, yeah, Falkor nursed Atreyu back to health, and kind of, I don't know, it took him to where he needed to go, basically. Or at least just most of the way. Yeah, he still has a little bit of walking to do, but other than that, you can still see that they'll be able to make it to the Southern Oracle. And basically with them is, I don't know, a couple of elf people. One of them is named Engiwook, or whatever. He's like a scientist studying the Southern Oracle. And then there's Urgel, his wife. And so, yeah, they argue for a little bit for comic relief. Basically, they befriend Atreyu, and they take him up to see the Southern Oracle with a weird telescope. Apparently, the thing, like the structure with the two sphinx, there's like it's kind of like a gate to the Southern Oracle, and it's across like a desert. So they see a knight go through it, but then suddenly the eyes of the Sphinx start to open, and then they shot lasers at him, and well, now the knight's dead. Rip. And so, yeah, of course, Atreyu's like, I'm gonna do this, and then Engiwook's like, no, what are you doing? This is suicide. Get back here. And of course, he kind of goes up to the Sphinx gate or whatever. He manages to walk a little bit, and well, he managed to dodge the lasers of the gate or whatever, and he managed to cross the gate, and so now he's closer to the Southern Oracle. So yeah, that's cool. So, yeah, Atreyu then goes to the second gate, which is supposed to be a giant mirror or whatever. Apparently, if the person looks at the mirror, they see, I don't know, their true self or whatever. And I don't know, it gives a lot of people, it makes a lot of people freak out. So He's a little worried. Atreyu then looks at the mirror, whatever, and an image starts forming of Bastian reading the book. And Bastian's like, what the f-? And then, I don't know, he starts freaking out a little bit. He throws the book across the room like this. And then once again, I'm like, dude, I think you're overreacting a little. All right, I'm gonna get that real quick. And so yeah, Atreyu then goes through the mirror, and he meets the Southern Oracle, which is basically the Sphinx Gate, except bigger, and it glows blue. It basically tells him about a bunch of things, like tells them what Atreyu needs to help the Empress to kind of like stop the nothing, and what she needs, a name. Of all things, she needs a name. Like, up until now, she doesn't have a name. Now she needs one. And then all of a sudden, the Fantasia is saved. And it's kind of weird. I know. I was like, that's it? Like, never? Just give him a name. Sarah. Boom. Movie's over. And unfortunately, it's not like that. Atreyu can't give him the name. Somebody else has to. Who it is? Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. And of course, a lot of time jumps as Bastian reads the book. Of course, it's after school, all the lights are off, and a big thunderstorm is happening. And at one point, he just like looks out the window and he's thinking about the name thing, and he's like, you know, my mom had a really nice name. You know? So anyway, in order to find answers, they have to go somewhere beyond the boundaries of Fantasia, which is kind of a little bit difficult, considering, well, the nothing's kind of closing in on all Fantasia. Atreyu's riding on Falkor, and they're caught up in the big storm, the nothing. It's the nothing. And I don't know, he somehow falls off of Falkor, and he wakes up in a beach somewhere on an island covered in ruins or whatever. It's very depressing. And of course, Falkor's not there, and he lost that, I don't know, the snake necklace that he had. And so it's kind of a big deal. And so then he walks around for a little while, and he meets Rockbiter's there. You know the rock dude from earlier. Of course, he's very, very sad about what happened off screen. Apparently, they were running from the nothing when I don't know. He had those two guys from earlier, the Night Hob and the Teeny Weenie or whatever. And they have the pets. I don't know. He just kind of slipped out of his hands, and well, now they're, yeah. And so I was kind of bummed. I was like, oh man, I really liked those guys. And so yeah, Rockbiter feels responsible, and they have a moment. And so Rockbiter tells Atreyu, hey, it's a Rockbiter. He's like, all right, listen, whatever your name is, the nothing's gonna be here any minute. You should probably, I don't know, get a move on. And then he's like, well, what about you? And then he's like, you know what? Death is okay. And so yeah, Atreyu walks through the ruins of that area, and sees a bunch of paintings, basically describing the events of the movie. Like when he meets the one dude from the Ivory Tower, the time where he's hanging out with Artax, when he falls in the quicksand. Meets the turtle, Oracle, and of course, there's the cave where Gamork is. And they basically, Atreyu and Gamork have a bit of a conversation. And he's like, hey, I'm gonna kill you now, but before I do, I'm gonna talk to you about some stuff. And then Atreyu's like, okay, sure. And then he's like, they argue for a little bit, and he's like, I have to go to the boundaries of Fantasia. And the wolf's like, there are no boundaries. This is made by mankind. This whole world was made by mankind's hopes and dreams. And the nothing is basically all the sadness and, I don't know, gloominess that mankind, and kind of like the emptiness of mankind's hearts or whatever. So yeah, it's all Fantasia's just no boundaries or whatever. Okay, time to die. Rah! And so, I don't know, they fight. We can't see the fight because, I don't know, they don't show it. But to put it simple, Atreyu basically kills Gamork with a conveniently knife-shaped rock. The nothing happens, and a big windstorm comes up. Just when he was about to go out or whatever, the Falcor comes up with the medallion or whatever, and he's like, oh, hang on, Atreyu, I'm coming. And then they go on their way. And so then we cut back to Bastion. Apparently the storm going on outside gets a lot more intense. Things start shaking and all that. So he just reads on. So Atreyu and Falcor, they're flying through space or whatever. All Fantasia is nothing but a bunch of boulders flying around. And, they have to go to the Ivory Tower. You know, the capital or whatever, that's where the Empress is. And so then they go to the Ivory Tower. Atreyu then goes up to the Empress's chambers, where he meets the Empress, who is a child. Apparently, as it turns out, the person that has to give her the name is the reader, Bastion. And of course, he's yelling about it. It's like, this is only a story. This isn't real. I have to keep my feet on the ground. And I don't know, conversation is like a bit between the Empress and Bastion, and they talk for a little bit about being like, come on, give me a new name. And then he's like, no. And then at one point he's like, all right, I'll do it. And then he comes up, steps outside, and then he starts yelling the name. I couldn't make it out with all the noise. And I'm like, once again, this is only a book. Why are you're overreacting again. Stop screaming and all that. And well, basically the movie goes to black. Bastion and the Empress is there. She's holding a single grain of sand. That's all that's left of Fantasia. He gives it to Bastion, and he tells him that, well, what happens now? Well, that's up to you. You make as many wishes as you want, and I don't know, maybe thanks to you, Fantasia will come up. Yeah. This is your story now. This is why it's called the Neverending Story. So the first thing he wishes for, he rides on Falcor. And he's like, and I'm like, how does that happen? Like, I know it's weird, but I don't know, he's flying with Falcor. They're flying through Fantasia. It's like nothing never happened. And, and there's like a cool finale with curtain call or whatever with most of the characters from earlier that we were concerned about. The rock biter, Nighthawk, the teeny weeny, and the other guy, the pets or whatever are there. They find Atreyu. He finds Atreyu riding on Artax. The horse is back, yay! And so yeah, that's cool. We don't see the scientist and the wife though, so that's the thing. So there's one more thing they decide to do before the movie ends. He goes back to the town where, this is New York City probably, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention. You see the group of bullies that have been bullying him. He comes, Bastian and the dragon, Falcor, they chase them through the town, and they kind of jump into the dumpster to find safety. And so, yeah, they get what they deserve. They get scared by the dragon or whatever. And maybe everyone else in the town, I don't know. So, yeah. And then the movie ends after that. So, yeah. That's right, guys. The Neverending Story actually ends. But there were, like, 2 sequels for this movie, but they didn't do very good. So, yeah, this movie was pretty fun. It's got a lot of cool characters and a pretty mind-bending story or whatever. The kind that really makes you go, what the f***? You know, that kind of story. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And I think I'll give it a 3.5 stars out of 5. So yeah, that's that. So that was the Neverending Story, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.